welcome back to my channel. I'm Keely and I had dialysis today, so that's why this is happening. Also, I have a sick kid. Poor Badger is sick again, so poor kiddo. So this is going to be short. This is going to be a short video. But I found this channel called, wait, what's it called? Jade Explains. I don't know if it'll demonetize me if I say the title of the channel, Jade Explains Death. I don't know what the rules are on here. I always seem to get in trouble for stuff that and I don't realize it. Anyway, she had a video I thought was interesting. It says something about how it would feel nitrogen execution. And you guys know that I worked on death row my first year working in maximum security state prisons. So I'm familiar with death row, and I'm not against capital punishment because I know some of the, like, if you take, for example, some of the serial killers on death row that I worked around, they just need to, like, not be a part of society. But anyway, so I think that's an interesting topic. Something I have a little tiny bit of experience in, except we haven't executed anyone in my state since the In Cold Blood murder dudes from the Truman Capote book. 1965 at Lansing was the last time we gave anyone any kind of capital punishment here in my state. But we do have 2 inmates who have the death penalty. BTK does not. They had gotten rid of the death penalty by the time he finally got caught, which is when I was I in high school? Yeah, I was in high school. I thought it was my biology teacher. It wasn't, but I don't know. Now that I've actually like dealt one-on-one with BTK, yeah, okay, I believe it. Because he is a fucking wackadoo. He is so weird. He's a weirdo. I mean, duh. But I was convinced for a while it was my asshole science teacher. But no. Little interesting fun fact about death row here. But I've never heard of this. Let's just get right into it. If you guys like my videos, could you please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel? Because I try to post a video at least every day. If not every day, I post at least every other day. Everyone keeps getting sick in my house, so it's delayed me quite a bit. Okay, are you guys ready? All right, I am. I guess I am. I have seasonal affective disorder, and I'm struggling right now, so I don't even know if this is, like, a good topic for me to watch right now, because I'm kind of in the middle of an existential crisis, so we'll just see how this goes. What is this about?
Welcome back to a new execution method video. There is a brand new execution method in the U.S., and it was used for the very first time last week.
Wait. When did this come out? 9 months ago? Wait a minute. So this is like this is what we're using? Wait, so we're gassing people? I don't want to be those people. I don't want to be those people. I don't want to be the ones gassing people. Are you serious? Wait, is it more like humane? How is gassing people more humane than what? Don't we just give them meds now and they just go to heaven? Like, isn't that how that works? I mean, we're not using the electric chair. We're not using like, what is it? The short for the is it a short drop method where they just kind of let them wiggle themselves out. You know, we don't do that. We don't even do the long drop method, which is how they still do it in Japan, which is where they drop them through the trapdoor and break. I mean, they hold their legs and shit, so it's not. It's considered like cruel and inhumane punishment if you let them dangle and wiggle. Like, that's why they hold their legs in Japan. Anyway. Some little facts I know. Interesting. Okay. Sorry. I thought this, I don't know what I was thinking this was. I guess I just didn't realize that we had a new method. Are we really? Okay, Bergen-Belsen. Let's see.
It is being referred to as nitrogen hypoxia or nitrogen asphyxiation. It's a new way to administer gas to induce death in inmates who...
Like the dentist from Little Shop of Horrors? Now, do it now, while he's gassing himself to a palpable stupor. The timing's ideal and the moment is super to ready and fire and blow the sick bastard away. Anyway. I was in that show a long time ago. The dentist dies because he's like trapped with nitrous oxide. And interesting.
Execution orders. In this video, we are going to be breaking down what it is, how it's done, how it might feel, as well as dissecting exactly
how am I just now hearing about this?
My content may be upsetting to some.
What state is implementing this?
At times, graphic depictions of death. Viewer discretion advised. Death by nitrogen hypoxia is not a brand new concept. Most of what we know about it through medical case studies involves industrial accidents. In recent years, there has been talk of a unique pod made by a 3D printer that utilizes liquid nitrogen for human euthanasia.
I've seen so many memes about that thing.
Nitrogen gas replaces oxygen, eventually causing organs to starve. It is yet to be used, but its creator is currently exploring the legality of the device for places like Switzerland. The concept of
that makes sense.
Hypoxia is
that sounds like something you guys would do.
An industrial respirator mask is secured to the inmate's face at 5 separate points. After the execution order is recited and inmate allowed to make a final statement, the mask, which is hooked up to pure nitrogen gas, is switched on.
Hold on.
This is the moment that the
I'm reading this, sorry.
is cut off from oxygen for good. A process begins to unfold within the body immediately. Organs are now operating on reserve of oxygen, which is...
Wait, where is this being implemented?
Before I dive into the nitty-gritty details, let's take a little time travel virtual expedition to the Alabama Holman Correctional Facility.
Alabama?
25th, 2024. This...
I know they like to put people to death in Alabama, but like, they're not really the first state I would have thought of to be like, you know what, let's do this new... this new way. Let's try this new way. Let's start gassing people. No, you know what? Actually, no, I could see it. I could see it.
This was the date and place
yeah, no, I could see it.
Life was finally extinguished.
They've done it already? Wait, so this is moving along really quickly. This is news to me. What the fuck? These ads are out of control. Botched. Well,
Smith was certainly in a very unique position. It wasn't exactly a good one. He had already technically survived one execution attempt in November 2022.
My face is so swollen today.
Living in the delusion that lethal injection was still a viable option. It was their last time trying. There once was a time when lethal injection was fairly routine and could in fact be painless. It was before European drug companies cut off the state's supply of barbiturates.
Oh, was that why?
Medical professionals like paramedics and doctors assisted. Though this technically goes against their oaths, it did help the success rate of IV placement, which lessened the amount of suffering overall. In 2022, it was strictly prison employees who were in charge of the execution. Sure, they were given a small amount of...
Do not put me in charge of something like that. I will be in charge of a cell house of 150 SEG inmates, all in slam cells, all violent, wanting to throw things at me, with the dudes on suicide watch. I don't care. Don't fucking ever. I saw another video and they had the COs like put the fucking electric chair together wrong. I couldn't even assemble this desk the right way, okay? Do not have me in charge of shit like that. Now, I can be trusted to do anything else, but I am not going to have the responsibility. I have ADHD, and I cannot promise you that I won't fuck something up. Because now I'm overthinking it. Don't ever do that to me.
Accelerated training, but that just could never be enough when dealing with non-compliant prisoners, some who dabbled in...
Do we not have executioners anymore? Is that not like a thing?
Smith never
We don't have
reached
any
the
Albert
stage of the
Pierre-Ponts
execution where
anymore.
drugs could be pushed into his IV. Staff tried over and over and failed miserably to place lines. At one point, they even botched an attempt at setting...
That's what would happen if that... Because I'm on dialysis. Like, they literally have to get, like, the sonogram machine out. Like, I only have one arm. That's the only place you can stick me. And sometimes you can't even go there. They've had to go to my neck. They've had to go to my feet. Because I'm on dialysis. And I can't use this arm because my fistula is on this arm. So I can't get blood draws. So, yeah, they've had... Whenever I come into the ER, they're always like, I just tell them I want the nurse who's been there the longest and who's the meanest, because I know she'll get it on the first try, and usually she does. If a doctor says they're going to do it, I'm like, get away from me. No offense, but...
Which is typically done with help of pain relievers and sedation. After he was a human pincushion, it was decided that the execution would not carry on.
I remember this.
They were on a time constraint, and it was running out fast.
I remember this.
Unfortunately, Smith was the last person informed of this. He was left in panicked solitude, strapped to the gurney for hours, just waiting for his death to proceed.
That's so fucked up.
I am not surprised that Alabama screwed the pooch. They are typically unprepared, undertrained, and overwhelmed. Honestly, it didn't seem
we all are
equipped during Smith's
We're all
second go
overwhelmed and understaffed.
The unfolding events that landed Smith in the death chamber for a second time are also unique. In 1988, he was offered $1,000 worth about $2,576 today to murder Elizabeth Dorleen Sennett.
Oh my God.
He was hired by her husband, a Church of Christ pastor, along with another man. The husband had racked up a healthy debt and planned to dig himself out of the hole with her life insurance money.
Wireman.
Smith and his co-defendant accepted and went on to kill Sennett in one of the most brutal ways. She was relentlessly beaten with fireplace tools and stabbed many times in the neck and chest. It wasn't quick. It left a horrifying scene that was staged.
That's horrible.
It certainly
this is what I'm saying. Like,
that likely continues to ripple through her
people need to understand the type of people that are on death row.
Rage towards Smith. Human instinct is a driving force for many of us to want to relish in any kind of suffering that he endured. But at the end of the day, we must remember that capital punishment is never meant to be about revenge.
No, it's about keeping the community safe.
No cruel and unusual punishment shall be used. It is simply a means to an end, and it is only recognized as lawful when it is humane.
Yeah.
Or so they say.
No, that's true.
Came at Smith's trial. Because this was a capital case pondering the death penalty, there were additional steps. After a guilty verdict was rendered, a jury had to deliberate and decide on a punishment. The 12-person jury voted 11-1 to hand out a life sentence. In a wild and rare move, the judge overseeing the trial overruled this decision and gave a death sentence anyhow. This is problematic for a multitude of reasons. For one thing, our process in states with capital punishment is not cheap or free of bountiful resources. What many people do not realize is that this is a big contributing factor in death sentences costing so much more than life in prison. These jury members had to say goodbye to their normal lives for a large chunk of time and had to sit and listen to and discuss very traumatic things. They weren't the only ones. The family of the victim had a longer process to contend with. They were dragged through a long trial. Then, when everyone executed their roles exactly how they were supposed to, the judge decided that it was all just a formality and he was going to have the final say. Sounds pretty ludicrous, right? That was how Smith ended up in the death chamber twice. Alabama had a duty to put him to death come hell or high water.
That's just what happened. That's the law.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas has been supporting Kansas throughout their biggest life moments. A Medicare...
During the day of January 25th, Smith was allowed several visits from select family members, a friend, his lawyer, and spiritual advisor. That said advisor, Reverend Jeff Hood, was the only person in Smith's camp that was granted access to the death chamber during the execution. Because nitrogen gas is not able to be detected by human senses, being present comes with a little risk. If the mask were to fail and leak out, Hood himself could suffer a similar fate to Smith. For perhaps the very first time ever, he was forced to sign a waiver that outlined this risk and forbade him from coming within 3 feet of the mask. The Reverend would go on to be one of the most outspoken witnesses of the novel execution. Prior to 10 a.m., on his death date, Smith enthusiastically accepted his final meal. This came as a bit of a surprise considering how little he ate the day before. He did not accept breakfast, subbed some soda for lunch, and picked at his dinner on that Wednesday, perhaps a sign that his nerves were turning his stomach. His last meal was a very fancy breakfast. He had a T-bone steak, cheesy, melty hash browns, and a couple of eggs prepared his preferred way. The meal was complimented on Waffle House and was paired with a heap of A1 sauce and perfectly tart orange juice. Despite his display of excitement for the meal, he was unable to finish. I imagine that the dark, anxiety-riddled thoughts of a dead man walking crept in. I suppose that as 6 p.m. crawled closer,
I would be fucking sick.
Enveloped him like thick black cement walls,
I would be
closing
sick.
in and pressing on his ribcage like an angry elephant. The reason that Smith had to partake in his final meal so early in the day,
I don't know. I think the guilt of having to live with what I did would be worse.
10 a.m. His lawyer had raised concerns that he had been experiencing vomiting due to PTSD brought on by his botched attempt. It was done to lessen the odds of him vomiting and aspirating during his execution. 6 p.m. was the tentative time that his execution would begin. After breakfast and visits, Smith heard his wife's voice for the last time. It was the last time that he pressed the cool handset of the phone to his cheek. Everything on that day had a real finality to it. I suppose there was still a lingering
I would think so.
Stay, but his attorney likely prepped him for the likeliest of inconvenient truths. He still had his last glances to savor. The time for talking was over, but before the fatal gas would be administered, he would get to sneak peeks through the thick weathered glass at his family. For the final hours of his life, he was placed in a death watch holding cell with nothing to do but watch the big and little hand of the clock tick, with each pace dictating the weight
Oh my God.
of his final breaths. 6 p.m. came and went with little movement or updates. Witnesses were on standby, and I was glued to my television, wondering what thoughts were racing through his mind. Little did we know that the delay was caused by the Supreme Court. They had yet to hand down a decision on whether or not this novel execution could proceed.
Yeah, like, are we allowed to gas people here?
Smith's death warrant was law. No stay was issued to save him. Minutes later, Smith was taken from his death watch cell and reunited with the chamber that had teased him.
I think I'm getting sick now, too.
For the next 45 minutes or so, there are no official accounts of what unfolded. The curtains to the chamber window were still drawn. Later, prison workers claimed that they were fighting with the heart monitor. Something was malfunctioning, which held everyone up. Apparently, Smith was mostly cooperative during this time. With still no unredacted execution protocol, we do not know if Smith was offered a sedative to help him relax and remain compliant.
I think that would be humane.
I imagine that if he was, the state would happily offer up that information to put in the humane column. They need all of the points that they can get. Furthermore, that would require a medication that would involve drug companies who have basically bowed
I feel a little bit of bias against against capital punishment from this channel for some reason.
According to him, a corrections officer continuously and belligerently pounded on the door, claiming that Smith was resisting. What he gathered was that Smith was anxiously fighting against being strapped down to the gurney. After the supposed fight, Hood anointed him, and soon after Smith began comforting him. Hood had grown quite close to Smith, and witnessing his death was weighing heavily on him. "I've got this," Smith repeated. Hood then recited Bible passages, with Smith chiming in enthusiastically with "damn right." Smith began
This feels very sympathetic to this murderer.
Perhaps hyping himself up to put on the show of his lifetime.
This channel's kind of getting on my nerves a little bit.
Death with dignity for his family's sake. The following account
He's not a fucking saint. He murdered a lady, like, violently.
The large, industrial-like blue-rimmed mask was
don't get it twisted. He deserved everything that he got.
But had a clear piece to allow a small glimpse at him. There was see-through white tubing that ran from the mask to an opening in the wall that led to the control room.
This is just mind-blowing to me that I didn't know about this.
Ready to go. At 7:53 p.m., the curtains opened, allowing the witnesses to set eyes on the masked man for the very first time.
My daughter's dad is German. I'm going to give him, he works at the prison too. I'm going to give him so much shit.
He was dressed in a faded beige prison jumpsuit with a thin, stiff white sheet draped over his
Like,
head.
hey.
It was perhaps the sheet that would soon be pulled over his head to signal
Guess
that he
what?
was indeed dead. He was secured to a medical gurney with very little, if any, wiggle room. Smith's execution warrant was recited.
I mean, apparently he tried to wiggle himself out of it, so.
Each individual special attention, scanning their faces and shooting warm smiles. He even carefully signed "I love you" several times over. It was time for his final statement. Unfortunately, the thick, clunky mask made it difficult for witnesses to make out each word.
Oops.
Through the several accounts collectively, it was pieced together, though may not be entirely accurate. Tonight, Alabama caused humanity to take a step backwards. I'm leaving with love, peace, and liberty.
I mean,
Thank
you kind of did that when you murdered that lady.
The gas was switched
It's not
on.
like he was innocent.
The time frames are all estimations. Watches are not allowed in the witness quarters, and the clock was digital and on military time and did not account for seconds. For the first 4 minutes, Smith appeared
Why does
to remain
this
conscious,
channel feel so
a stark difference
sympathetic
from
to
what the
this
state
man?
expected. Spokespeople had claimed beforehand that he would be rendered unconscious in seconds and dead in a couple of minutes. Where they got this idea is beyond me. It seems that they did very little research to arrive at this false conclusion. Asphyxiation is
Well, it
typically
kind of
only
feels
happening on
like
the big
you're
screen or
kind
in
of
extenuating circumstances.
trying to make him seem
Smith
like
seemed to gasp for air and make gurgling, choking noises.
he didn't put himself in this position. Like, girl, fucking stop.
All seemed to agree that he writhed, convulsed, and tugged at his restraints. His face looked pained.
I mean, you're suffocating with gas. Like, why couldn't we just stick with lethal injection? No matter what, they're gonna end up dead. So,
possibly not.
like, I don't know what people think dying is like. That it's just like,
fade away. That is not what they watched happen. After those first few breaths,
some people don't die in a graceful manner. I don't know what to tell.
Perhaps his struggling against his straps was his futile attempt to get them off so that he
What do you think he was gonna do? Get away? Like, and not have a death penalty? Like, it's too late for that. He got he got sentenced to it.
Your throat feels thicker. Everything feels more imminent. The weight of the organs in our chest, which we normally pay no mind to, feels impossible while lying down choking. It can feel like it's crushing us.
Yeah, it would suck.
The rapid
It would
display of
suck.
the struggle was enough to
Dying is gonna
convince
suck.
everyone
It's gonna
to
fucking
avoid such a
suck.
thing in the future.
Some
After
people
the
just get
first
theirs
4 minutes,
first.
Smith appeared to slowly melt into the gurney. The struggling ended, but the noises did not. There were gasps and labored breaths.
Yeah, it's called the death rattle. That's what happens when you're dying.
It's commonly seen in things like cardiac arrest or massive
So when my
strokes.
dad
It is
had it for
involuntary
days
and
when he had
reflexive,
cancer.
oftentimes not even experienced. It can certainly look otherwise. It's the body's way of gasping for air because
Yeah,
it's no
'cause
longer
you're
getting enough and
receiving
it's
the death
nearing
penalty.
end. It is possible and likely that shortly after the jerking and struggling ended, Smith slipped into unconsciousness. The gasping,
Yeah.
snoring, and labored breathing
It would have been like
continued
falling
for another
asleep,
5
like
to 6
getting
minutes. The little bit of protocol that we did learn
like,
ahead of time
strangled.
from Alabama was that the procedure would be to administer the nitrogen gas for a minimum of 15 minutes, or at least another 5 after a flatline, even if Smith stopped breathing prior. That is exactly what they did. The gas persisted for about 15 to 20 minutes. At 8:25 p.m., he was pronounced dead, but the curtains had already closed to the witnesses 10 minutes before. After the fact, a spokesperson for the prison put on a press conference after the prison employees launched
I mean,
their
there's
own
gonna be
rallies
some trial and error when you have a
Mr. Senate
brand new
watched it
execution.
later on
Not that
TV
they're not
and was
gonna go
astounded at how
perfect from the
dishonest it
bat.
was.
Like,
According to him, half of what was said to have happened did not, in fact, happen. Smith's wife also spoke, stating, "Tonight I watched my husband jerk and convulse and gasp for air for at least 10 minutes." According to the state, the execution was textbook and a resounding success. If death is
I mean,
all
it
they were
worked.
after, I suppose that it was a success. But textbook?
it
was
worked.
not.
I mean,
As we already
either
know,
way, he
there's
was
no
gonna end up
textbook
where
to
he
go
ended
on
up. I don't know why this
was
is.
the first of its kind, and it's sure different from what the
He gets to be the first guy they try it on, so it's probably not gonna go the way they expect. I don't know what people think. Like,
in theory, they are public record in Alabama, but the state
that there's gonna be
has a tendency
miracles.
to
Like, don't
ignore
murder
this.
people.
I requested a copy, so we will see what happens in the coming
I just
months.
don't have any.
Not only is nitrogen not detectable by our senses, but breathing it in initially feels like we are breathing in regular air. Nitrogen
Understanding
always
of-
makes up a big chunk of the air that we breathe, and it's not harmful as long as enough oxygen exists along with it.
I think everybody should
It
have
isn't
to work in a
the toxicity of
prison
the gas
at
that
least
kills.
like
It's the
1 week
absence
of their
oxygen
life.
that does the trick. This makes nitrogen
Everybody
much
should
more
have to work in
suitable than
maximum
previously used hydrogen
around
cyanide
like
gas in
the
gas
worst
chamber.
people we
There's
have.
no burning of the tissue or war wage of the cells.
And
not the
see
gas itself anyhow.
exactly
There are
what
side
type
effects.
of
In the
people
old gas chamber, the condemned had to contend
need to be
with both
in there.
suffocation and unmeasurable agony. As you may have noticed, witnesses described Smith as gasping and choking. It did not appear
I mean,
that
he
could
got
not
gassed.
escape the unsavory
I don't know what people are expecting.
There are a couple of potential explanations for
What do you
this.
think happens
One
when
is
you're
that
gassed?
When witnesses watched him dry heave, he actually vomited. Because he was lying on his back strapped down,
That can
vomit
happen
likely
when
would
you're
have oozed back
gassed.
into his mouth, where he would aspirate it into his airways and lungs. This leads to basically drowning in your own bodily fluids. The acid of the vomit burns delicate tissue of the lungs.
But you're
This
gonna be
prevents
dead.
a person from being able to breathe. It is quite miserable for a person who is coherent.
Who thought this was a good idea? Who thought this method was a good idea? Who was like, let's try gas, and then people will have nothing to complain about. People will never say it's botched. People will never say it's inhumane if we go with gas. Who thought of that? Who thought that was a good idea?
That likely means that Smith was receiving closer to
Dr. Mangala, who fucking thought that was a good idea?
When there is a bulk of nitrogen with just a small amount
Some
of oxygen,
bureaucracy
it can still
bullshit.
induce a sensation of
This is some
suffocation.
bureaucracy
This is one of
bullshit.
those
I can
things
just
that
see
take
it.
the death and kick it up a notch or 2 or 3 in agony. Suffocation causes immense pain as time goes on.
Yeah, so why are we doing that? Why aren't we just paralyzing people's hearts like we did before?
And wrongly hypothesized across the internet.
We're like, oh, Europe's
there should be no
supply of,
buildup
we'll get,
carbon dioxide.
we can
This
make
is what triggers the
barbiturates.
brain
It's
force of
2024.
painful and involuntary gasp. It triggers the sense of
If they can make meth in a pit in the jungle, we can make fucking barbiturates in a
This would
lab.
only be true if Smith continued to exhale out until unconsciousness. Just holding our breath for too long can cause a buildup of CO2. We have to be able to release it.
Who thought this was a good idea? I don't get it.
His breath. It really appears that Smith did not escape that nagging, blaring, consuming, compressing sensation of suffocation.
I mean, he was getting gassed.
Because, animals, but it has basically
Oh,
been outlawed to
puppy.
use nitrogen asphyxiation to euthanize mammals since the early 2000s.
Oh, I'm the old
This is
boy.
due to
I
side
won't
effects
pet
of
him.
severe distress, seizure-like behavior, and writhing.
Oh,
In
that's a
short,
good
it's
dog. Look
really
at his
awful to the
ears.
unfortunate souls who had to
I love
witness.
German
There's
Shepherds.
clearly a sweet and slim spot with nitrogen that results in a peaceful end. No matter what, it is never a guarantee. I believe that the euthanasia pods are probably the only ones on track to achieving this. Because they are
I don't think the prison's gonna be able to
fast,
shell out money
just
for a
like ordinary
euthanasia
breathing.
pod, girl.
Hypoxia can still induce a sense of restlessness and
Like,
nausea,
they can
but
barely
if
afford to
vomiting
pay
doesn't work,
us.
There's space for it. As time goes on, the individual would feel their sense of clarity wane. They might feel fuzzy and heavy. The restlessness or feeling of needing to crawl the walls would fade away and meld into an overwhelming exhaustion. There might be a
I just don't know why
nausea
we
that
need to
starts
give
in
them
the
all this
gut and
grace
works
when they
its
never
way up,
gave their
then it
victims
has
any of that
days.
grace. I
Even
don't
if vomiting
understand why
occurred,
people are
unconsciousness
coming,
would be
like, going.
brain
I understand
Their
you
head
being
might
humane,
feel like
but
it's inflating and beginning to pulsate. The brain is struggling. Cells are dying. The brain tissue is
I
swelling.
mean-
The cerebrospinal fluid levels are shifting. You would experience that pressure. That in itself
I think
is
some people
responsible
just
for
have-
nausea and vomiting,
I think
and
some people cross
that
the
in
line
itself
into being
induce
naive.
convulsions and involuntary movements. Consciousness would likely only last no more than 2 minutes from the time all oxygen in the pod is replaced. For some, it may be much sooner. After the fact, while the person's heart is still beating,
What if you change your mind?
breathing. This can sound like snoring, struggling, or gasping, but it is all reflex. It happens frequently during unconsciousness when the person is no longer aware or experiencing sensation.
That's crazy. Who
It's
decided
same
let's
for
start
living,
gassing
but
people?
not for the dying. On
In the
flip
US
side,
prison
experiencing
system?
the same end, but with a mask
We get
can be
enough
actually
shit.
different
We don't need
experience.
more.
Within moments, perhaps just a breath or two.
Someone had to be like, this doesn't seem like a good idea.
If it does, it would go a little something like this.
The family
Of course,
members
keep in
are
mind
gonna
that it can
are
be
gonna get
years
mad and
to
upset and
experience.
complain.
Your throat runs dry. It is generating immense heat. It feels like it's swelling and closing.
I mean, you're
The only
dying.
thing driving you is the overwhelming need to draw in a clarifying breath and swallow, but you cannot do either.
Well, you're not
As the
going
seconds
to.
pass
You're
by without
dying. Like,
breath,
that's
your
the
chest
point.
and throat burns more and more until it reaches a fever pitch of feeling as if bulbous molten glass on a stick is being shoved down your esophagus, gagging you. The
Okay, so why are we
automatic
doing
is
it?
filling you from the tips of your toes to the top of your head, but it really seems to be pulling
Imagine
in
how
your
that
gut,
poor lady
throat,
felt when
and
he was
chest.
like hitting her
You
in the
feel
neck
like
and the
how
face
cold
with
it's rushed out
a
of your
metal
glands,
bar
inflaming
or
all that
with a
doom.
fucking fireplace
Suddenly, you
poker.
wonder if your lungs have been turned to heavy stone or metal. It's like a rock-hard band is wrapped all over you and is growing tighter with each moment. Eventually, your head starts to swim in haze, but you are
I
too
feel like this is
preoccupied
probably
to
how I
notice.
felt when I had
Nothing
5 pounds of
is
fluid
flailing,
around my
trying to save
heart.
itself, but it's only making the whole experience worse in the process. Because you are unable to breathe, carbon dioxide is in fact building up within you. It's aggravating your brain to force an involuntary breath that really only turns into a sharp stabbing gasp because, well, you can't actually breathe. All of this goes alongside the same features of hypoxia previously mentioned. It's just that our body has a tendency to only consciously experience the worst and loudest of sensations, drowning out all else. Depending on how much oxygen was able to sneak into the mask, consciousness can last for double or triple the time. In
That's what I'm
Smith's case,
saying,
it
is
can last
like-
for about 3 to 4 minutes. Convulsions can hit either before
Unless you're
or after
using like
consciousness
Zyklon B or
returns.
something, like how do you know that it's going to be like that effective?
Unusual punishment. Do you believe that this is a viable
You're not.
method
He's
for
going to be the
future
guinea
use?
pig.
As for my opinion, based on witness accounts, it sure seems that he suffered to at least some degree. However, I have learned that I cannot always trust witnesses. It isn't that they are dishonest. It is just that sometimes the dying body looks so much worse than
It can look a
actually
lot
is.
more shocking to the
Involuntary
family.
movements and sounds can easily be mistaken for voluntary. Witnessing death in general is such
It's
a
the
unique
worst.
and
I watched my
upsetting
dad die. It
experience
was...
that cannot be prepared for. Because of this, I don't think it would be fair for me to say one way or another.
Yeah.
What I will say is that I believe that the death penalty is archaic, outdated, and
See, I
expensive.
told you that this
Indecent
was a
justice
biased
supporters
fucking
believe
video.
that it costs less tax dollars, and that's a misconception. Plus,
Girl.
how many innocent people have been traumatized over the years by the state? We cannot possibly measure.
Girl, what about the people who murdered people? I'm so done with this video. I'm done with it. I don't need to finish this. I don't need to finish this video. I don't need to listen to that. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. She could have just spared me and didn't, stopped wasting my time. And I didn't have to watch that whole video of her just talking about how she thinks the death penalty is archaic. Okay, girl, well, then don't make a video about it. Like, just be like, hey, this is why I think the death penalty is wrong. Okay, and then I won't watch it. I think everybody should go work in a maximum security prison that has a capital punishment area or death row. I think they should go work there for 1 week out of their life. And you just tell me, look into what they did. Look into their, the victim's family, like the statements from the victim's family, yeah, for the people who are like really into true crime and shit. It's always those type of people that they have such a strong opinion about capital punishment or prison. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't see any of you all going in there and dealing with these people and actually looking at like the effect that they had on the people that they unfortunately came into contact with. But most of them are not sorry. There's a guy who is on death row right now who shot his two teenage daughters and his estranged ex-wife and his mother-in-law. And he still feels like he was justified, completely justified. There was a 2020 episode on it, and he was so stoked about it. Like, he was like, you see, I was on TV. Yeah. So anyway. So yeah, I guess we decided to start gassing people. I'm sorry, I just think that like the DOC needs to think about this because like we already get enough shit from the family members, and we already get enough lawsuits, and we already get enough like complaints from the public who, from people who know nothing about corrections, nothing about the like law enforcement or the criminal justice system at all. Who decided like, hey, let's try this new type of execution method. Let's gas them like the Nazis did. Let's do that. That can't come with any problems. Nobody's going to have a problem with that. That's not going to look botched. That's a graceful way to go. Like, oh my God. Oh my God. It's just crazy. That's crazy. That's just crazy. I just think that's insane. I think that they're just asking. They're just asking to get fucking bitched about. No one's ever going to be like, I don't know. I don't think this is going to be our new standard of execution. I think they're probably going to figure out some other medical situation. Because I'm sorry, if you can make Ozempic in a lab here, you can make fucking barbiturates. Tell me that we can't make barbiturates here. There's people making fucking dirty 30s in the fucking basement of one of these meth lab houses on my street. Like, you're trying to tell me that we can't find some medical way to help people just go and not make it this big fucking deal and this big Like, can we just maybe not gas people? That's just crazy to me. I don't know. I just think that's just asking for criticism. I don't know. There's a lot of like decisions that have been made in the DOC lately that have been head scratchers, to be honest. There's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of politics, and I stay out of that. I stay out of it, and I just do my job and give my check and go home. Okay, guys. Well, that was interesting, I guess. I'm never watching her channel again, though, because she's annoying as shit, and that was so incredibly biased, and I was just like, I wanted to roll my eyes so hard the whole time. But anyway, okay, well, let me know what else you want me to watch, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Okay, love you, bye.